Good morning to all of you. Am I audible? Can one of you, tell me whether you can hear me clearly? There are 24 participants at the moment who have registered. Can one of you tell me whether I am audible to you? Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Right, thank you very much. So, welcome to the first day school in construction, engineering and materials, right? Now, this CVX4446, construction and engineering and materials. And today we will be conducting this day school for 2 hours. And during the 2 hours, I will try to cover the construction engineering part as much as possible, right? According to the time availability. Do you hear echo or something, or is it very clear? Can you please tell me again? Is there an echo, or am I very clear to you? Can one of you respond to this?
Clear, sir.
Right. Thank you very much. So, construction engineering and material is consisting of 2 parts. Part 1 is construction engineering, which is dealt with block 1 of your course materials. Then part 2 is construction materials, which is covered in your block 2. By this time, have all of you got your block 1 book with you? Can one of you again respond whether you have got your block 1 course material with you?
Yes, sir.
Right, very good. I hope all have got block 1, and block 2 probably you might get it after some time, or have already got block 2 as well. Have you got block 2 as well? If you have not got, can you just inform me? What about block 2? Block 1 you all have got. Mohan Rasa? Mohan Rasa, can you tell me whether you have got block 2?
Block 2 also.
Block 2 also you have got. So very good. So you have both the blocks with you. So you are ready for the construction.
Yes, sir.
Right, very good. Thank you very much. So block 1,
Yes.
I will be in charge of block 1, right? I am Professor K.S. Veerasekara. So I will be doing the construction engineering part, and construction material part, which is covered in block 2, will be taught by Dr. Lakshika Udumula, right? So today we will try to cover the block 1. If I tell you block 1 has 19 lessons, since you have the books, you can see block 1 has 19 lessons on construction engineering, and block 2 has 21 lessons on construction materials. Altogether, you have 30 lessons. So out of these 30, not 30, 40 lessons, right? So today I will try to cover the first 10 lessons in block 1 in my day school 1. And then in my day school 2, the balance 9 lessons we will try to cover. So there will be 2 day schools before your CAT 1 exam. And just for you to give a brief introduction about the whole picture of this course. Now, CAT 1, Continuous Assessment Test 1, will cover the whole of block 1, right? All the questions will be asked from block 1 only for CAT 1. And for CAT 2, you will be questioned on block 2 only. So when you do CAT 1, you have to thoroughly study your block 1 and go for the CAT 1 exam. And when you go for the CAT 2 exam, you have to thoroughly study the block 2 for the Cat 2. So in the meantime, there will be lab classes. So there will be 4 lab practicals which we will be doing during the lab classes, which I will tell you later, right? About the lab component, because the lab component is towards the end of the course according to the activity schedule. So there will be 4 day schools, as I mentioned you. First 2 day schools will be conducted by me, and it will cover the construction engineering, the 19 lessons which are in block 1. And the day school 3 and day school 4 will be covered by Dr. Lakshika Udumulla, which will consist of construction materials. And she will do day school 3 and 4. So to tell you about the eligibility, I think you all must be knowing by now. Eligibility criteria, both the CATs are very important, equally important. So you will get CAT 1 mark and CAT 2 mark. They will be added and the average will be taken. And from that, a weightage of 60% for CAT 1, CAT 2 average. And for labs, 40% weightage of 40%. So it's very important to, pass through lab activities, because lab activities are compulsory. So if you don't come for the practicals and if you don't submit the lab reports in time, you are not going to get the eligibility. If you fail in labs, again, you are not going to get the eligibility. However, well, you have done in your CAT 1 and CAT 2. So lab practicals are very important, right? Then once you get your eligibility, I have to tell you about the CATs. As you all know, CAT exams are 75-minute duration. And now since the COVID pandemic is over, I think we should be able to have the CAT ones as normal, like in the previous years, not like in the last year. So CAT exams will be not online, I hope, right? It will not be online, it will be physically. You will have to come and sit for the CAT 2 exams at the regional centers where the exams are being held. So CAT papers will have 20 questions, and the space will be provided. You have to answer those 20 questions within the space provided. And the duration of the CAT exam is 75 minutes, and there will be 20 questions, short answer type questions. There you have to answer within the given space of the question paper. Am I clear? Are there any, do you want to get any more clarifications about the CAT exams? You can always, you can always ask your questions. I like to be interrupted, right? Don't keep silent, because day schools are very important, right? Unfortunately, due to these power cuts and these other problems in the country, we couldn't have day schools face to face. But personally, of course, I prefer, day schools having face to face there. You all are together in front of me, and any questions you have, you can straight away ask me, and where I try to, respond to your questions. So anyway, though the day schools are online, don't think that you can't ask questions. If you have any questions, you are always welcome to ask your questions during the day school, because otherwise you don't have any opportunity to, unless you come to my room and ask a question, you don't have any opportunity to clear yourself. If you have any ambiguities, any unclear areas, there we can get them sorted out, there we can get them clear, right? So once you get to eligibility, right, then you have the final exam. Final exams are 3 hours written papers, right? In the final exam, there will be 2 sections, section 1 and section 2. Section 1 is based on construction engineering, which I will be setting the question paper. And section 2 is on construction materials, where Dr. Lakshika Udumulla will be setting the questions, right? Now, section 1, there will be 4 questions, and section 2 also there will be 4 questions. So altogether in the final exam, you will have 8 questions, and out of the 8 questions, you have to answer any 5, total of 5 questions. So either you can answer 3 questions from section 1 and 2 questions from section 2, or you can answer 2 questions from section 1 and 3 questions from section 2. So a minimum of 2 questions you have to answer from one section, whatever, section 1 or 2. And again, the maximum you can answer is, though you have 4 questions, maximum you can answer from one section is only 3 questions, right? So they will be long structured type answers where you will have to write within the 3 hours which you are supposed to answer the exam paper. And all these exams will be closed book exams, including the CATs. Both CATs will be a closed book exam, and the 3-hour final exam is also another closed book exam. So that is regarding the assessment criteria, how you will be assessed in construction engineering and material course. Then it's very important all of you to be very interactive with the Learn Know USL. All the announcements, any discussions, everything will be in Learn Know USL. So constantly you get into the Learn Know USL, and there links are given, and we are giving you supplementary material in addition to the block 1 and 2, right? We are giving you supplementary material through the Learn Know USL. In Learn Know USL screen, when you go there, when you log in, it also will be in 2 sections: construction engineering section 1 and construction material in section 2, which will be monitored by section 1 will be monitored by myself, and section 2 will be monitored by Dr. Udumulla on construction materials. So we have already given you a lot of supplementary material. Try to go through those, and we have given you some important YouTube links, right? You can watch those YouTube links. And only thing is, when you go to the YouTube, there are so many YouTubes available, you all know, right? There are, hundreds and hundreds of YouTubes available in any topic. But only thing is, what we are expecting is, because you can go straight, when you go to look at all the YouTubes, because some YouTubes it provides you good informative material. Some YouTubes might mislead you. So what we recommend is only to look into the YouTubes that we have recommended, right? So don't just waste your time in going through all the YouTubes that are available in the internet. Just only watch the YouTubes that we have recommended, because otherwise, if there are any contradictory things when you are being assessed, if you if you learn something from contradictory YouTube, so if you answer the questions, you might lose marks. So that is the danger, right, in browsing all the YouTubes. So what I am recommending is to, whatever the links that we have given you, few links, not many, right? Watch those YouTubes, right? And we are not liable if you, get the wrong information by watching other YouTubes, and if you try to, answer with the knowledge that you have gained, and if you are not given marks. So that is what you have to be careful when you are watching YouTubes, right? Then there are some day school links which I have given in the Learn USL instructions. Then there are some past papers for you all to, go through. You can go through the final exam past papers which are given in the USL Learn. And again, if you go to the university library, again some more past papers are available, right? So try to, then there are some assignments given in the YouTube. Assignments are not compulsory. Assignments are for self-study, right? there are some assignments given to you in the YouTube, in the Learn How USL. So try to find answers for this, those assignments, or answer those assignments, and then check with your course materials. You yourself can check the answers because the answers are there in the course material as well as in the recommended reference books, which we have again given to you. And both block 1 and block 2, the soft copies are available in Learn How USL, in addition to the 2 hard copies you have. So always, on screen, you can, download those soft copies and you can, watch. You can read those. If you are more interested in reading those material through computer monitors, you can always, go through the block 1 and block 2 through computer monitors because they are available in soft copy format. Then those who want, those who want to read the book, like people like me, I always like to read the hard copy rather than the soft copy. So anyway, now the 2 books are available, they are with you. So from today itself, you start reading those lessons, right? The 19 lessons in block 1 and get yourself ready for the CAT examinations. Then when it comes to the day schools, these day school recordings will be later. I will upload them. Now today's day school, after finishing today, I will upload it to the Learn How USL, where you all can re-watch it, right? There are any people who have missed the today's day school due to any reason, they can always go through it in the Learn How USL uploaded version. But however the uploaded versions are there, I always recommend that you all to attend the day school when it's being done like now, right? You always try to, now there will be future another 3-day schools in this subject, another one which I will be doing and do by Dr. Rumula. Try to take part in the day school, and later you can rewatch it if there are any unclear areas, or if you want to consolidate on certain things that were discussed, you can rewatch it. But always try to take part in the day school, because the advantage is you get directly. Since now there are no face-to-face lectures, this is the only way, right, where you will be directly interacted with the lecturer. This is common for all the subjects. This is an opportunity for you to, interact with the lecturer directly when you attend the day school, right? Even though it's through Zoom. Now there's a question from Prathupan. Are there any possibilities to get access to Learn How USL for the students who are going to sit final exam only? No. The students who are doing the final exam, they would have attended the day school last year, right? So last year they had the opportunity of learning to the day schools. These are the newly enrolled students, because only newly enrolled students are being uploaded by SETME to the Learn How USL, right? Are you clear? That is the answer for that question. Then I was talking about the day schools. So, as I told you, try to be with the day schools, right? Because you come to, you get introduced to the lecturer, get to know the other students who are doing the subject, right? Because you can see the list who are whatever your friends who are doing the same subject. And if they have any problems, we can discuss here at the day schools when you are attending. And you are exposed to the subject knowledge. So I said that's about the day schools. Then about the lab classes. lab classes, there are, if you look at the activity diary schedule, the schedule is again in the Learn OUSL, right? Either you can see it through your activity diary or in the Learn OUSL, the activity diary schedule for this particular course is given. There are two groups. We have to do the practicals as two groups. Group 1 will be doing the practicals in the first 2 days. And group 2 will be doing the practicals on the second 2 days. So one particular student doesn't have to come all 4 days. So either you will have to come on the first 2 days for the practicals or the day 3 and day 4. And practicals will be held in Colombo, Navala Regional Center and Kandy Regional Center only. So you can't do the practicals going to any regional center only. Only you can do it in Colombo and Kandy only. So during the 2 days of your practicals, we will be doing 4 experiments. So in the morning, you will be doing day one, evening, the second practical, day 2 morning, the third practical, and day 4 morning, the fourth practical. The 4 practicals are, first practical is test on bricks and cement blocks. So that's the standard testing of bricks and cement blocks, their strength, right? That is practical number 1. Then practical number 2 is test on aggregates, right? So that is practical number 2. Practical number 3 is testing on concrete workability. And practical number 4 is on vein shear test. So those are the 4 practicals that you will be covering within the 2 days that you come to the laboratories. So you do the practicals, and within 2 weeks we will be giving you the submission date. You have to submit the lab reports within 2 weeks, right? Once you come for the practicals, we will give you the submission date, and no late submissions are accepted. If you don't submit your lab reports by the deadline, by the date that we give you, then of course late submissions are not being marked, and you are going to lose your eligibility because you will be failing your lab reports, you will be failing your lab component, and that means you are invariably failing, not getting your eligibility. So it's very important, right, to come to the lab classes and do the practicals, and not only that, to submit the lab reports within the given time. So I mean, we are very strict on submitting the lab reports within the given time. I mean, don't come and trouble us by not submitting and later try to submit, because we are not going to give you any excuse. No late submissions are accepted. So I'm telling you very clearly at the beginning itself, right? So again, I'm telling you all the announcements during the course. I will be myself and Dr. Lakshika will be giving you through the Learn OUSL. Any change of dates or anything like that, we will inform you well in advance through the Learn OUSL. So I mean, it's very important for you to be constantly in touch with the Learn OUSL, because if you don't look at the Learn OUSL screens often, you might miss important announcements, important notices. So you might even miss a lot of important things, right? So constantly, not only this subject, all the courses in civil engineering program, you have to be constantly in touch with the Learn OUSL. So it's very important all of you to get registered in the Learn OUSL. If you have any problems, go and meet Dr. Geeta Kulasuriya. If you have not given access, you can always go and meet Dr. Geeta Kulasuriya in the SETME. She is the one who is finally giving the access to students to the Learn OUSL. From the department, we can't do anything. Once you are registered in the course, if you are not given access to the Learn OUSL, please go and meet Dr. Geeta Kulasuriya in the SETME and get yourself access into Learn OUSL. At the moment, I have seen 110 students have been given admission. And if there are any students, any friends of yours, please tell them if they have not given access to go and meet Dr. Geeta Kudasuriya and get the access to Learn Now USL. Because Learn Now USL is the most important thing, prime important thing in following this course. Then regarding reference books, right? In addition to the course material, the block 1 and block 2, we have given you some good reference books which are available in the library for you to do further reading. So a list of references is given in block 1 in the last page for construction engineering. Page 284 of your book. If you refer it, in there, the very last page, right? There are some good reference books listed there which are available in the library. Right? This chart links building site works and substructure and plan, then aim, levels, properties of concrete, and so on. There are a list of books that are given in your block 1, the last page. Right. So that's about the introduction to CVX4446 on construction, 4446 on construction engineering. So now we will try to, cover some lessons which are given in the block 1, right? Lesson 1. What is lesson 1? Earth moving equipment, right? Lesson 1 deals with equipment. Now, when you are doing construction engineering, one of the very important basics of construction engineering, any construction, maybe it's a building construction, or it's a road construction, or whether it's a bridge construction or dam construction, earth moving plays a big role, because earth moving needs to excavate the foundations, right? To excavate foundations, depending on the size of the structure, right? You have to have earth moving equipments. So in this lesson, that's another question again. This subject not yet included in my Learn Now USL dashboard. So if you have problems, right, now you have access, any problem regarding Learn Now USL, you have to go and meet Dr. Geeta Kudasuriya in Sydney, right? That is where your answers can be found, because we can't, from the department, there's nothing that we can do. All the registered students are being uploaded onto Learn Now USL in any course, any course. If you are registered, you should be uploaded into Learn Now USL. So if that's not there, you have to go and meet Dr. Geeta Kudasuriya. Okay, I have answered that question. Then regarding the earth moving equipment, so what are the earth moving equipment? If you are a construction engineer, you should have a good knowledge about this excavating equipment. In this lesson, what we are discussing is about this earth moving or excavation equipment. What are these excavation equipment? There's a list, right? Those that are discussed in this lesson. Now, tractor is a earth moving equipment. If you start with a basic equipment, why do you say tractor? Now, tractor, it has a trailer, right? Whatever the excavated material, if you want to transport it from one place to another, from site A to site B, right? You have to you can take it through a tractor by loading it to the trailer, right? You have to have another equipment to load it to the trailer, and once it's loaded, it can be taken. Then crawler tractors, right? And then crawler tractors means where tractors are driven not on tires but on chain blocks. Right? They are crawling. When a machinery is moving through chain blocks, it's called crawlers, right? So even a tractor can be a crawler tractor. Then you have the wheel tractors. With the tractors where you have the wheels, right? Crawler tractors are important when the soil is very boggy or very marshy, where the tractors can get bogged. Bogged means you can get right? If you have crawler tractors. there are less possibilities because for all tractors, since it's a chain block, it has more power where it can get over a difficult situation. Then you have the bulldozers, right? Bulldozers with the front blades, you can excavate, you can push, pull, do anything with bulldozers, right? Then you have backhoes. There are sketches given in this lesson, right? These are clearly shown. When you are reading, you can see what excavators are, what dredgers are. If you are dealing any excavation in a water area, in a stream like, you have to do that with dredgers, right? Then scrapers, huge bucket scrapers, right? Then motor graders, right? Rollers. So I will try to show you some of these equipment which we discussed in this lesson through my PowerPoint slides, and details are given in the first lesson. Read it carefully. Now today after this day school, try to read this first lesson and get a good idea about the earth moving equipment, right? So the lesson 1 is on that. Then if we go to lesson 2, what is lesson 2? Lesson 2 is on hauling and hoisting equipment. When you say hauling and hoisting equipment, you have to, differentiate the difference between hauling and hoisting, right? You say hauling when you are taking something from one place to another place horizontally. Through a tractor, you can haul a earth load from point A to point B. You are not taking it upwards, but you are taking it laterally, horizontally. When you take a load horizontally, you call it hauling. Then the other thing is hoisting. Hoisting is when you are taking a load upwards, right, vertically. Then you call it hoisting. Now, if you take a tower crane, right, the load, a bucket of cement or something like that, you hoist it with the tower crane or any crane. So that is the difference between hauling and hoisting. So there are different equipments to carry out these two activities. Now, if you are hauling, right, what are the hauling equipment? As I said, trucks. Trucks are hauling equipments. Those large trucks or small trucks or uh, maybe tractors, all those are hauling equipment. They are taking a load, maybe a load of rubber or load of metal, right, or earth load horizontally from one place to another place. Those are hauling equipment. Then what are other types of hauling equipments that are available in a construction site? You have the dump trucks. So when you say dump trucks, there are three types: rear end dump, bottom end dump, and side dump, right? Depending on where the load is taken in and taken out. You can do it through the rear end or the bottom end or the side. Then you have dumpers, another hauling type of equipment. Then you have trailers, right? All these are hauling equipments. Then what about the hoisting equipments? Their loads are being taken vertically. As I told you, cranes, right? The most primitive type of hoisting equipment is the pulley. Pulley, you all know what pulleys are, right? අපි කප්පි කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන්. Now, if you take a well, right, you have the pulley, and you can draw a bucket of water from deep inside the well onto the surface through pulleys, right? That is the basic fundamental pulley, right? Then you have pulley chains, right? Different copy arrangements කියලා. You can have the pulleys arranged in different ways where to increase the efficiency. They are called chain hoists, different types of hoists, right? Then mechanical jacks. Even the jack is a hoisting equipment. If you have to change a tire, if there's a tire puncture in your car, you have to raise the that particular tire to above the ground level to a certain comfortable level for you to unscrew the tire and take it off and put the spare wheel into the place. So you have to jack up the vehicle. So it's that you do it mechanically, right? Or through hydraulic jacks, right? So even the jack, though the hoisting distance is short, it's a hoisting equipment. Then fork trucks. You all have seen warehouses and all where you see those fork trucks. Yeah, they can be. You can take a box or a load from one place to another place horizontally, as well as for shelving it, you can raise it up, right? So fork trucks and forklifts are, you can do both horizontal and vertical movement. So it's a combination of hoisting and hauling. Then of course the cranes, as I told you initially, you have different types of cranes, mobile cranes. Now mobile cranes can be taken from one place to another place on wheels, and then you can raise some things, right? You can hoist loads. Then whirling cranes. Whirling cranes are where cranes you have long arms and the crane can be rotated horizontally. So the arm can be rotated horizontally. I will try to show you some pictures, then it will be clear to you. Then you have the tower cranes, those huge cranes where you can see at construction sites, they are multi-story, 15, 20-story building sites. You can see these tower cranes massively towering above the background. Then you have the hydraulic cranes, right? Then now if you have visited the harbor quay, where the containers are taken off from ships, large ships, container ships, and they are being transferred to different locations or to container carriers. So those are being done by gantry cranes, those huge cranes, right? They are supported from 2 ends or sometimes from 4 ends. Their large containers can be taken off from the ship and load them onto huge trucks, right? Truck carriers. So those are called gantry cranes. I think you all know this, what I am meaning. You all have seen pictures. So those are the different types of hauling and hoisting equipment. I think I have talked at length. So we will try to, share and see some pictures of these equipments which we have discussed under lesson 1 and 2, right? These are available in your Learn OUSL screens as well. We will try to, Can one of you tell me whether you see the picture? Do you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Right. So now we talked about hoisting machinery, right? And I told you about tower cranes. Now this picture shows a typical climbing tower crane, right? So you all have seen this. It's not something new to you. So only thing is you will have to, when you look at the book, so you should have knowledge about the main components of a tower crane and how they operate. Because we don't have to, go through details, right? Very complicated details. But you should have at this level, you should have a good overall basic knowledge about these different types of cranes. There's a power cut here. Are you all, do you all hear me? Now at the moment there's a power cut. Can someone answer me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There was no disturbance. Was it continuous? Till the generator is on, I hope, I'm clear to you. Am I clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Right, good. I think generators will come on. Till that time, we can continue with the lesson. So, is the tower crane, right? Typical tower crane. Now, in a typical tower crane, I mean, these are some of the main components of this tower crane. You see, now this building is at the construction stage. You can see the shuttering and maybe some concreting is going on. And you see the workers there on top of the deck. And through this tower crane, right, you have this main boom, right, the arm of the tower crane, right? And from there, you have a pulley here, right? This is what we discussed earlier, pulley. And there's a chain crane sling. You call it crane sling. It's vertical string which is attached to the pulley, right? And you have the tipping skip. This is the skip or the bucket where concrete is being fed at the ground level, and it's being raised up to the level at the construction where concreting is being done. Right? So here the main you can see here this is the jib. This is called the jib, right, of the crane. Okay, this is the main arm. On the main arm, you have a running pulley, right, with strings downwards, where you can move it from this end to this end, right? Within that, it has a this the area that it can cover, and at the same time, this crane can be rotated. So, with the rotation, with this pulley, with these slings being moved from center to the radially outwards, you can cover the whole area, the construction area, wherever you want to, I mean, take things by rotating this as well as by moving this sling, bucket sling, you can cover a huge area. Now, when you have a weight attached to this end, right, due to the, I mean, you know, due to the structure, if you don't have a counterbalance, right, if you don't have a counterbalance, this might topple up this way. So that's why you have concrete ballast blocks at this end, the other end, opposite end, to balance and give stability to the tower crane, right? These are concrete weights to balance uh, the load which the concrete is moved about. And this is the jib, and these are called jib holding ropes. These are all steel ropes with the jib is being tied to the main structure. Where I think now it's clear, right? So this is the typical tower crane. And here, the end of the hook, right? Now this thing from the, if you go to the previous slide again, now you see, now from the main arm, you have this crane sling. This crane sling is a steel cable, right? This steel cable, you have to attach a weight to the steel cable, otherwise it will curl down. So to avoid to curl up, you have a fall block at the end of the steel rope to make it straight. Then you have the hook. They are the bucket or whatever the weight is being attached. Right? Fall block is to have the string vertical, because otherwise this string will be curled up and you will not have a proper control over the string. Right? Then you can see this is the operator's cabin, right? It's like a helicopter cockpit, right? Where the operator should have a clear visibility of the whole construction site. So from here, the operator can see where the load is needed, where the load has to be taken, and all that, right? The operator should have a very clear visibility construction site, because otherwise if he's being covered, if some places are not being seen by him, then it's difficult for him to take the load to the exact location where it's needed. And at the same time, to help him, you have this upper deck. There are helpers for him to, if there are, because he can't see 100% of the construction site. So these helpers will help him to guide the load to the exact location, right? So these by they are lifting work, right? This high up in the sky. And you have to be brave to be operators, operate this kind of machinery. So this is a picture which I have taken when this Rajagiri HSPC site was constructed, right? This HSPC site and the crane that was used to operate, construct the building. It had a very long jib with lifting capabilities. So this, this pulley can be taken from this side, from this location to end of the jib, and this also can be rotated. So the whole construction site can be covered. And here the operator's cabin, and here the balancing blocks, concrete blocks to balance this weight, right? Then we talked about hauling equipment. So these are typical bulldozer, right? Yeah, earth can be hauled. Hydraulically controlled blades, right? In front you have these strong blades. Yeah, earth can be cut and pushed. Then it's moved on a track with a chain block, where I said, it will not get bogged down in a very loose soil or boggy soil or marshy soil. This can be moved. Here the operator's cabin, and here's the exhaust pipe, right? So this is the chain, right? Typical track mounted bulldozer. So these moved on chain block, and this is the power drive, where the power is being given to the chain to be moved. So you have two power drives at the two ends. Sometimes you have a power drive at the middle and same. So this is the track width of those shoes. These are, you have these shoes on the blades. There it will hold onto the ground. So this gives the slide proof holding onto the ground of this track mounted bulldozers or whatever machinery. So because of the shoes only, it has a better grip than tires. Then the scarifers. These scarifers are to scrape the soil, right? You can scrape the soil and loosen the soil, depending on your, whatever necessity of that construction site. Then hauling or pushing. Now these are tire mounted dozer. There you have the bucket in front, and you can push or you can haul it, right? Or you can load to a truck or something like that if you want to load a truck, and if there are any earth or whatever, metal or whatever, you can collect this into the bucket and you can hoist it as well. Hauling and hoisting both can be done with this, but hoisting is limited, not like cranes, right? Hoisting distance is limited. Hauling, you can haul it to a greater length. Then again the same. This is typical tractor shovel. Now this is a tractor connected to a bucket, right? For paddy fields and all, you can use this, right? This you have the bucket and connected to a tractor. Typical tractor shovel. Then there is a bucket scraper. We were talking about bucket scrapers, right? You have the bucket in the middle. You have the blades at the middle, and with the blades, cut the soil and collect it into the bucket, and you can transport it horizontally. In the backside of a bucket scraper, they run huge tubeless tires. These are tubeless tires, right? And we have the bucket here, right? The bucket open. Bucket can be opened from rear and taken the soil off, whatever earth load off. Then scraping and leveling is another machinery. Then typical rollers, right? They are also earth moving equipment, rollers, right? Earth compaction you use rollers for earth compacting, for road construction, then earth dam construction, right? And foundation solidifying. For these purposes, you can use the typical rollers. Yeah, compaction is needed. Then sheep foot rollers, right? These are, you call them sheep foot because of these small shoes that you have on the roller, right? So with the sheep foot rollers, you can compact again if you want to have a better compaction. Then typical face shower, right? You have a boom here and the dipper arm, right? And it's hydraulically operated, and you have the excavating bucket here. So you can excavate, you can demolish things, you can load things onto trucks and tippers, right? These are very handy, very useful equipment which are to be used in earth moving sites or construction, foundation excavation sites. So this is the typical the bucket, right? At the bucket you have now this the bucket of it's a bulldozer, right? So you have the bucket where the earth is being collected, and you have these teeth, the cutting teeth. So these teeth are replaceable because otherwise, if because these always used at heavy conditions, so there's a tendency for the bucket to get wasted. So you have this teeth arrangement. Yeah, this if it's being wasted, it's the teeth. Always you can replace the teeth without replacing the bucket with a lesser, right? So you have this bucket teeth arrangement for replacing the wearing conditions. Then track mounted skimmer, right? Another moving wheel mounted skimmer. Yeah, they are mounted on wheels. Earlier was mounted on crawlers. Right? These are wheel mounted skimmer. And you have seen the small wheel mounted backhoes, right? These backhoes are used for trench cutting and all. These are commonly seen everywhere. If the only thing is you will have to look at them carefully with an interest. Then you can see wheel mounted backhoes, how they operate and all that. Right? So this is trench cutting. This is our university actually, right? On the side of your exam hall 1, they once cut a trench. We have got these pictures when the operator was cutting the trench. There is asphalt. When you are surfacing roads, transport asphalt road construction is also another hauling machine, right? Equipment where asphalt is being transported from the yard to the construction site. These which I was talking about these forklift trucks, which are used in large warehouses, where hauling and hoisting both could be done simultaneously. Because these are small equipment. If we want to stack things in a warehouse, boxes or whatever, right? It has these long arms to the front. You can put the box onto that, and you can transport it horizontally to wherever you want to take and replace it, right? Then you can this bottom two long arms can be raised with this hoisting equipment. It can be raised and shelving, right? In warehouses, these are very common. Then mechanical spreaders. These are also another earth related equipments, right? On large scale construction sites and road construction projects do use this equipment. Then asphalt laying, right? This asphalt is being transported to the laying machine with these tipper trucks, and they are being spreaded evenly with this machine. Then even the basic, the tractor, right, for pothole repairs and all, patching up potholes, right? So you can use this also another holding a basic machine, and you have the Dynapack compactor for earth compacting, right? Bitumen compacting. Quickly we'll just the other. This world's those days one of the world's largest earth movers, right? I will go through this quickly. This is the largest earth mover in the world, built by German company, Group, and seen here crossing a federal highway in Germany, right? You see, the huge dozer can be used in large mines, right? Here it's run on several chain blocks, I think 10 or so chain blocks, and the huge machinery, right? These are the earth cutting buckets, right? There are so many earth cutting buckets arranged in this wheel arrangement, like a circular saw. You can see here proportionally how large it is. The mower stands 311 feet tall. That means about 31 stories high, right? And 705 feet long. It weighs over 45,500 tons, right? It gives some statistics. You can see these. I mean, it's available in your lessons. Here, it's being operated in a huge mine. I don't know what this mine is here. Huge, I mean, the area that it has cut, you can just imagine. So to cut areas like this, maybe coal or whatever, right? Such big machinery has to be used. Otherwise, it takes a long time. Here, just to see, this is a dozer, standard bulldozer. How small it is when it's compared with the huge cutting machine. Here is a bulldozer. It's inside a bucket, right? Here, the size of the bulldozer comparatively, for comparison, they are showing. We were talking about hoisting equipment. When you are using hoisting equipment, I mean, you have to, when you are dealing with hoisting equipment, you have to work with heights, right? Working at heights has always been a hazardous business. It's a dangerous business. Gravity had much of the same strength as in 1930s as it has now, right? So when the world's tallest building in 1930s, the New York Empire State Building, right? It was the tallest building for a number of years. Now, of course, there are so many buildings which has passed that. So during the construction in 1930s, the Empire State Building, which is a steel structure, right? So these are the, days they didn't have so much of advanced equipment like nowadays. A lot of hard labor was involved. So I show you some few clips, right? When it was about going above the ground into sky, right? Supervisor's role, it's quite daring, right? The workers have to do this riveting in the main steel structure with great caution at very high levels. If you slip, and that's the end of you. Bolting, here these it's towering over the other tall buildings. Those days, tall buildings above the sky, right? So it's very daredeviling work. Construction engineering means it's not just work inside the computer laboratories and inside the office space. You have to face a lot of daredevil bravery. So all these some pictures, old pictures of Empire State and Eiffel Tower. This Eiffel Tower, right? France, Paris, Eiffel Tower. See, it's again Empire State. Then this famous Golden Gate Bridge. These these are quite old structures built in 1930s and 20s, right? That's why I'm showing you. Those days actually it was, these people are really brave people. The construction engineers, the laborers, the technicians who were involved in this. This Golden Gate, the two towers have been done. Now it's being connected. The suspension part is being connected. Now how it looks. Golden Gate in San Francisco. This is the current world's tallest building in Dubai. Okay. So we had some interesting slides. We'll get back to our lessons. Lesson number 3, right? Earth compaction. Now, lesson on earth compaction. The aim of this lesson is to discuss various types of equipment generally used for earth compaction. Now, all this time, we were basically talking about earth moving equipment. But you need earth compaction as well for road highway constructions, for earth dam construction. Compaction is very important. So this lesson introduces you to basic definitions of soil mechanics, such as dry density. In soil mechanics, some of the parts that we do in this lesson, cover in this lesson, you all have already learned, right? About dry density. What is dry density? The definition of dry density. Why it is important? Then what is moisture content? Why moisture content is important? Then maximum dry density, etc., etc. Those soil terminology which you have learned in the soil mechanics will be briefly discussed in this lesson, right? And we will be studying different types of compacting equipment under this lesson. When you say compaction equipment, right? Basically, they are the rollers, right? Study about different types of rollers. Rollers, we have smooth wheel rollers and sheep foot rollers, right? Which I have showed you already, right? You all know the smooth wheel roller doesn't have any kind of irregularities on the wheel, the drum or the wheel where earth is being compacted. It's smooth. As the name suggests, it's smooth wheel, right? But in sheep foot rollers, you have those small shoes, shoe arrangement in the roller where earth will be compacted. Sheep foot rollers will have a higher compacting power than the smooth wheel rollers because the earth is being concentrated. The load is being concentrated, those shoes, into particular points. So once those particular points are being compacted, they will have a concentrated load on those points, which will better compact the ground or the soil. Then you have rammers. Rammers you have seen. right? Different types of vibratory rammers, right? You have the hand-operated rammers and rammers like Dynapax. Dynapax, you have the two-wheel uh, vibrating two wheels where earth or bitumen in road construction bitumen can be compacted while vibrating. Then study on correct procedures for compacting earthwork. We will be studying what are the correct procedures in compacting earthworks, the specifications for soil compaction, then productivity of the compacting equipment, right? So I mean, try to read this lesson carefully with the background knowledge that you have gained through this day school. You will be able to understand it better when you read these lessons. Only thing is, try to read these lessons today or tomorrow itself. Then I mean, just you will be fresh with the lecture. You will get a better understanding about the whole scenario, right? And in the meantime, use the supplementary material given in your Learn OUSL as well. Then productivity of compacting equipment, right? There are different types of compacting equipment which already we have been discussing, and the productivity, how the productivity varies, which is the better compacting equipment. If you are being asked to compare two equipment, which will have better compacting effect than the other. That type of basic knowledge you should have when you study this lesson and when you complete this lesson. Because it's, as a construction engineer or as a construction supervisor, if you go to a construction site, you should have a good knowledge and understanding about this equipment which are being used at the construction site. That is the whole purpose of this lesson. Because you can't be an engineer or a technical officer if you don't have understanding why these equipment are used, for what purposes these equipment are used, what are the capabilities, the capacities they can be used, for what conditions they can be used. That kind of overall knowledge you should have, right? That is what we are expecting from this lesson. Then that is about lesson number 3. If we go to lesson number 4, what is lesson number 4? Pumping and dewatering equipment. Now, when you are doing excavations, especially during rainy seasons, right? Dewatering is very essential, because if you have to do the excavation beyond the water table, depending on the situation of that time, right? Then when you do the excavation, water gets filled to the excavation, right? Then you have to dewater to proceed with the excavation. For dewatering, you need water pumps. There are different types of water pumps that are being used in construction sites. So this lesson basically discusses about the different types of water pumps that are available, which are you should have a good knowledge about which type of pumps that you have to use for different specific jobs, right? There are many number of pumps that are available, many types of pumps. So as a construction engineer, if you are involved in doing a construction excavation, right? Excavation for a foundation or excavation for we'll say a large strip foundation or a pad foundation, right? Or for piling, right? Then you should have a good understanding or which type of pumps that you have to use for the dewatering purposes. And again, depending on the water table, if it's during the rainy season, you will have you will need very powerful dewatering, because otherwise the water table is high, and as soon as you excavate, as soon as you dig, water fills it back, and you will be hindered with further excavation. So you will need more powerful types of pumps, right? So this knowledge is very important, and this lesson discusses about that. Study the different types of pumps, and they are used for dewatering work. Then there are different types of pumps which are classified. Classification of pumps based on the basic working principles, right? Based on the working principle, these pumps are classified, right? You have positive displacement pumps, then rototype displacement rotodynamic type of pumps. So you should, have a good understanding what these positive displacement pumps are, or rotodynamic pumps are, right? What reciprocating pumps are. Then centrifugal pumps, submersible pumps. All these type of different pumps are discussed in this lesson. Then study the different characteristics of installation of different pumps. Then the advantages and disadvantages of different pumps, right? So, when you are comparing pumps, you should know what are the advantages of using this pump. What are the disadvantages? And if you use a different type of, let's say, a reciprocating pump, what are the advantages? Then what are the disadvantages? Right? Then for a job, how to select the most suitable type of pump, depending on the extent of the job, right? These are important. Then power, what the power consumption of these different types of pumps are, especially in periods like this where the country is in a power crisis, right? So you should, not waste power. So you should try to minimize. Should try to, use the optimum type of machinery or a pump to do that particular work rather than wasting on energy, right? Because if you, for a small job, if you hire a huge power consuming machinery, right, whether it's a water pump or whether it's a excavating machine, whatever, whether it's a crane, right, you should not waste. You should know how to optimize it. That is the type of knowledge that we are expecting from lesson 4. To study lesson 4 well with the help of the supplementary material and these appendices given at the end of the block 4, right? There are a lot of sketches and pictures given in the towards the end of block 1, right? As appendices. So study those and enhance your knowledge. So that is lesson 4. Because since we don't have much time, we have to rush through, right? So pumping and dewatering equipment, right? Done lesson 4. Then we come to concrete, right? One of the main components of construction sites, concreting. All this time we were talking about excavation and earth handling, right? So lesson 4 is about properties of concrete, right? When you are making a structure, maybe a building or maybe a bridge, right? The concreting is the most important part after doing the excavations, right? So in lesson 4, lesson 5, properties of concrete is being discussed, right? When you say properties of concrete, what we do is we study the properties of fresh concrete and properties of hardened concrete. Now, concrete can be very clearly broken into two parts. One part is when the concrete is fresh, until it gets hard, right? Until it gets hardened, it's fragile, right? It has a workability. You can maneuver it the way you want. You can put it to a shape what you want. But once the concrete is hardened, then of course nothing can be done. It's hardened, and then what you need is the real strength, which are what you are expecting from the hardened concrete. So properties can be defined into two sections. One is the properties of fresh concrete and the properties of hardened concrete. So to get good finally the final aim is to get a good hardened concrete, which will last on number of years, right, or centuries, probably, right? So to get the good hardened concrete, you have to have a very good quality control during the construction period, during the construction of that structure. If you don't have a good quality control during the concreting, what you will end up is with a poor concrete, which will not have the expected strength and expected duration which you planned at the design stage, right? So this quality control is the most important thing when you are doing a construction site. If you are the engineer in the construction site, in charge of the construction, if you don't do the quality control properly, you will end up with a poor concrete and you will finish the job and hand it over to the client and you will vanish out. The client will have tremendous, endless number of problems, right? Though you have gone, the construction engineer is out of the site, client will be left with numerous problems uh, in the future. So that's why this quality control at the construction stage is so important. So properties of fresh concrete, as I said, right? What are the properties of fresh concrete? One is the workability, right? When the concrete is fresh, it should be able to, it should have good workability. Workability means the maneuverability. Yeah, whatever the shape that you need in the final structure, you should be able to have the concrete in that proper workable way, right? Then compacting, right? Then how this measure workability is being measured, right? These things are discussed in this lesson 5. Then factors affecting workability. What are the factors that will affect the workability? Things like admixtures, right? To concrete, to get proper strength, you have various chemicals added into the concrete. They are called admixtures. So admixtures has to be introduced very carefully. You should know the exact amount what you have to put as admixtures. Then their composition and all that. Then the other important thing is the water cement ratio. When mixing concrete, you have to put water, you all know. So this proper amount of water has to be gone into the concrete. If you put too much of water, it's problematic. And if you put too little to the little water to the concrete, then also you have problems, right? So proper water cement ratio is very important. Then aggregates. In aggregates means in concrete you put sand, then cement, right? Then metal, 3/4 metal, right? So those aggregates are very important. Proper proportions of those aggregates. Then the quality of those aggregates, proper sand, right? Quality sand should be introduced. Then quality metal. If the metal is weathered and weak, then you are going to end up with a poor product, right? Then cement has to be good cement, right? If the cement is being pre-hardened, then you will end up with a bad product, right? So all these things are very important. Then the ambient conditions. Ambient condition means the climatic condition. If you are doing the concrete in a very wet zone, right, where humidity is very high or very low, right? Atmosphere has a lot of, water particles in the atmosphere. Then how you should put the cement, water cement ratio, you have to have good understanding, right? If we are doing the concrete in a very hot sunny environment, like in a desert, right? Then what the water cement ratio should be, how you look after the concrete. So all these are very important, right? Then the stability, strength, then segregation and bleeding. Now in concrete, in wet concrete, you have concrete. Once you put the concrete into the formwork, the concrete can be, once it's being compacted, it can sometimes be segregated. Segregate means uh, bigger particles come to the bottom of the concrete and small particles go to the top of the concrete. And the particles, the mix is being segregated, is being differentiated. So that is bad. Then you will end up with a poor quality concrete. Similarly, you have bleeding. Bleeding means you put water into the concrete, you mix it, and if you put too much of water, water will come to the top and cement will get washed away and aggregates, the metal, or we can those will go to the bottom of the formwork and which will have a very poor concrete. So you have to avoid both segregation and bleeding, right? Bleeding means just like bleeding if we cut our skin, the blood comes out, say bleeding. Similarly, in concrete also, if the water comes to the surface and gets dried off, and it doesn't help the hydration process in the concrete for strengthening purposes, then you end up with a weak concrete. So you should not allow bleeding to happen. Like how we should not allow our bodies also bleeding not to happen, right? Similarly, it's similar meaning. So what are the tests in hardened concrete, right? Most important thing is the strength and the durability. Once the concrete is hard, we are expecting a certain strength in that concrete, and we are expecting a certain durability. Durability, that means to last it for so many number of years, for 50 years or 100 years, right? So durability got to be there. Then in hardened concrete, how to test the strength of the concrete, right? If you want to see a bridge, how long it's going to last, how further it's going to last, you should have a good idea about the strength of that structure. So, measuring the strength of the structure, there are different types of tests that can be carried out, right? Rebound hammer test. Then, like that, there are different tests. So, in this lesson, those things are being discussed. So, lesson number 5 on properties of concrete. So, the two main properties, the fresh concrete properties and the hardened concrete. Those different properties are being discussed at length, right? So, read that lesson and get all the information, right? So, up to now, do you have any questions to ask? I have been talking all this time. I would like for you of you also ask some questions. There is a noise. Chamika Sirivardhan. Now, is there that noise? Is it noisy still? Yeah, there's a comment by Chamika Sirivardhan. I think somebody would have had the computer unmuted. Now it's muted. Sir, could you please explain the swell property of backfill with respect to loose and hard volume, which affects the efficiency of the bulldozer? Now, what is swelling? Swelling is, right? Now, you do excavation, and once the excavation material is taken out of the ground, right? The volume of that taken out of the ground is definitely more than when it was inside the earth, because there are air particles in the excavated material. So that you call swelling, right? Now in a compacted earth, if you do a pit and if you take the soil out of the ground, definitely that volume will be more than when it was inside the soil. That is because you can have air particles into the soil. So volume becomes, you call it swell because it swells, right? Swells means I think it has a bigger volume. When you want to, again put back and compact it, then of course, depending on the compaction machine which you use, you can put it back to the original condition. If you use a equipment which doesn't have much compaction power, then the swell will be a little bit, there will be a little bit of swell once you put it back to the ground. If you put a very solidifying concrete compacting machine, then of course you can even minimize the swell. You can make it even to a smaller volume than the original volume, right? That depends on the compaction machinery which you use. So there has been a power failure in one student's area. So anyway, this will be uploaded, right? So you won't have a problem. You can follow this lecture, right? I'll try to upload it not tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Right. If there are no any more questions, we'll go to lesson number 6 because I'm expected to cover 10 lessons today, right? Another about half an hour. Lesson number 6, what is it? Concrete practices, batching and mixing concrete, right? So this is about batching and mixing of concrete. Batching means taking the correct proportions. When you are mixing concrete, the main three ingredients: sand, uh, cement, sand, then metal, right? And water. So you have to get the correct components of these different components and then mix it. So batching is the calculating the correct components for proper mixing. And then once they are being put together, they are being mixed. Concrete. Then only you have the fresh concrete, right? So in this lesson, we study the important practical aspects of batching and mixing of concrete, right? How to batch, how to get the correct proportions of the main ingredients, and how to mix once you get the correct components, how to mix the concrete, right? Batching and mixing of concrete at site. Batching of cement and aggregate into what are the available methods for batching, right? There are different types of batching methods, right? You have these batch boxes. You fill the boxes for a particular cement bag. So many boxes of sand. So many boxes of metal, right? This amount of water. So I mean there are like that. How to get these proportions right, right? So yeah, those things are discussed in this lesson. And the equipment and the method used for mixing of concrete. Then once you have batched the concrete and once the components are put into one round, how to mix the concrete, right? What are the available mixing methods, right? Of these concretes. Then effect of water in the concrete. The water which we discussed, too much of water is bad, and at the same time, too little water is also bad, right? Then measuring the correct amount of water. How to measure the correct amount of water. How to take care of the mixing equipment. Now you have these concrete mixers, typical concrete mixers. It's important when you are doing a slab or a column, right? You have to use these concrete mixers and mix the concrete, and you put the concrete, fresh concrete into the correctly formulated form. And inside you have the reinforcements and all that, right? Once the concrete is being done, then you allow it to settle. So I mean, you do a good concreting job. But what about the concrete mixer? It's very important. You have to clean the concrete mixers after the job at that day itself. Otherwise, if you neglect it, the concrete mixer can get hard. The concrete inside the mixer, the remnants inside the mixer gets hard. So once it gets hard, it's a very difficult thing to remove it. Sometimes you have to replace the whole rotating drum. So I mean, negligence is very, I mean, you should avoid negligence. As soon as you do a concreting, you have to make sure before the people leave the construction site, you have to clean all the concreting related machinery, because otherwise by the time you come after 1 or 2 days, concrete has got hardened, then cleaning will be sometimes impossible, right? You might have to lose the whole equipment also if you are negligible, right? So batching and mixing of concrete is lesson 6, right? When you read, you will understand. Carefully read that lesson, right? Then we go to lesson number 7, transportation and pumping of concrete. So concrete can be done in situ at the site itself. Concrete mixing can be done at the site, or concrete mixing can be done at a plant far away, maybe 10-15 kilometers away. So if the concrete mixing is being done at a plant, concrete plant, so those mixed concrete, they have to be transported to the site within couple of hours, because you can't delay that. If you delay, the concrete, fresh concrete gets hard. inside the machine. Then once you lay it on the into the formwork, already they are partly hard. So you are not going to get the proper strength. You are going to get a end up with a very weak concrete. Sometimes the whole bed might have to be thrown away, right? If it has got hard. So you have to be very careful. You have to plan. If you are doing a concreting at a site, how the transportation should be done. So in this lesson, transportation and pumping of concrete is being discussed. Pumping means from the machinery where the concrete is being brought to the site and how it's being pumped to the form, right? So study the various methods and plants available in the available to transport concrete. And study details about pumping of concrete, right? How concrete is being pumped to the correct height at the correct level, whatever if the construction site has gone 4 or 5 levels high, you have to pump the concrete 4 or 5 levels high. If it's even more, you might have to take the concrete with the help of a skip bucket, with the help of a crane, right? So those details are being discussed. Then introduction to the transportation of concrete, right? The different methods available for transporting concrete. Then equipment for transporting concrete, like whether you are going to transport the concrete with dumpers or mobile mixers. You have seen these large mobile mixers which you commonly see on the roads. Those huge mixers with a rotating drum. Concrete are being transferred from plants to the construction sites. So you can't, delay those trucks for hours and hours. Within a certain specified time, you have to make sure that those concrete mixing trucks reach the site, and once they are reached, immediately you lay those concrete into the already constructed form. Then what are the methods available now? Concreting also, again, that hauling and hoisting business comes into the picture, right? Concrete has been mixed. The concrete is being mixed at a faraway plant. First, you haul it to the construction site. You take it along roads. You bring the concrete to the construction site, which we define as hauling, right? You bring it horizontally, right? What are the equipment that are available for this hauling, right? So you can, easiest method, right? The most primitive method. If you are doing a small construction site, like let's say like a house construction, right? Then you haul the concrete through pans, tarchi, right? You put the concrete, the small amount of concrete into a tarchi or a pan. You take it to the, or you pass it from hand to hand to the relevant place. And if it's upwards 1 floor high, you pass it by hand to the next person standing at a little bit higher level, and the next person a little bit more higher level, and then you put it into the formwork, right? So concrete can be hauled and hoisted through pans in a primitive, small, very small construction. If the construction is a little bit more than that, you can take it through wheelbarrows or concrete prams. Where concrete is being fixed into a smaller wheelbarrow or a pram, and you push it. And if you want to raise it to a higher level with a winch, with a winch, you can raise it 1 or 2 floors, right? You can't do it for number of floors, just maximum maybe 2 floors. With a winch, you can haul it once it's been hauled. Then lorry-mounted concrete transporters. With lorries, you can take concrete from yards to construction sites. Then tipper trucks. Through tipper trucks also you can haul concrete to construction sites, right? Then ready-mix trucks. You have seen ready-mix trucks, which I just talked about. Those large rotating drum type of trucks, right? Yeah, large volumes can be transported. And for to prevent initial settling, those drums are being rotated. So that's better. That's a better arrangement than tipper trucks, right? Because concrete is being continuously continuously being mixed while being transported also. Then when you are transporting through pumping through ready mix trucks. Then hoisting of concrete. Once it's being brought to the site, you might have to raise the concrete, right? Some of the pictures which I showed you, right, in the PowerPoint. You can with skip buckets with the help of tower cranes or huge cranes, tall cranes, you can vertically raise the concrete, right? Then you can pump the concrete. There are concrete pumps, those with those long pumping tubes. You can pump the concrete, maybe to three, four floors the maximum, right? Pumping is limited because more than 3, 4 floors you can't pump concrete because there are no machinery available to pump concrete more than 3 or 4 floors, right? So in that case, we have to use the crane. So with the skips means buckets, you can raise the concrete to the construction level, material. So site organization is very important. On the day large concreting is being done, you have to organize your site well in advance if you are the site engineer or the site supervisor. Because if you don't organize your site, by the time those concrete comes into the site, if there are no ways of, getting the concrete ready mix trucks to the correct location, you will be in trouble because you don't have the time to clear up and then take the concrete to the wanted place because concrete gets hard. So you have a limited time. So during that time, you have to get the maximum out of it. To get the maximum out of it, precautionary measures are very important. You have to get the site ready in the previous day. By the day that you concrete arrives at the site, everything should be clean and site access has to be very clear. Once the concrete is being unloaded, the truck has to have a separate path for the next truck to come with the second load, and you can't have within the site vehicles moving this way, that way, and trying to organize space for vehicle parking and all that, because it will take time. Time means concrete will get hard, right? So this lesson discusses about site organization on the construction sites. So that is lesson number 7. Lesson 8 is placing and compacting concrete. Still we are discussing about concrete because concreting is the prime important component of a construction site, right? So lesson 8 is on placing and compacting concrete. In this lesson, we learn about the concrete procedures of placing and compacting of concrete. Then we learn about the various types of vibrators and their action in compacting concrete. Once the concrete is being put into the formwork, vibration is very essential. So there are different types of vibrators that can be used in construction sites, right? This lesson discusses about different types of vibrators and how those vibrators are being used in fresh concrete for proper compaction, and how those vibrators should be maintained. Those details are discussed, right? In placing of concrete in the correct procedure that have to be adopted for placing concrete. Now, placing concrete into the formwork is also another, you have to do it very carefully and in the correct way. You can't just unload the concrete. You have to be very cautious in putting the concrete into the formwork, because otherwise, if you do it in the wrong way, bleeding and segregation can take place. So you have to minimize bleeding, and not only minimize, you have to stop bleeding and segregation taking place when you are putting the concrete into the formwork, right? Then concrete vibration. There are different types of vibrators, as I told you, internal vibrators and external vibrators. So concrete can be vibrated differently. Now, poker vibrator is called an internal vibrator. You put the concrete into the formwork and you insert the poker vibrator into the concrete, and those insert Poker vibrator vibrates. So the concrete inside, from within the concrete, the vibrating operation is being done. And there are external vibrators where you can vibrate the formwork, right? You can either vibrate the formwork also. There are different ways of vibrating formwork. You have to be very careful. If you do too much of external vibration, definitely bleeding is going to take place, right? So this how these external vibrators are being clamped onto the formwork. These things are discussed in this lesson, right? The correct procedures and correct methodologies, how they are being done. Then we study the different types of vibrators that are available for internal vibrators and external vibrators. Then the effects of over vibration, right? If you over vibrate it, if you vibrate too much, then it's harmful to the concrete, right? So what are the effects if you over vibrate? And again, if you under vibrate also, then also you end up with a bad concrete. So what are the effects of under vibration? These things are discussed. And how to take care and maintain the vibrators. Again, like the concrete mixers, vibrators also after end of the day, you have to take care, you have to service them, you have to wash them, you have to clean them, right? You have to oil them, depending whether they are diesel operated or electrically operated or petrol operated vibrators, right? There are different types of vibrators working on different energy modes, right? Depending on those, you should be able to take care of those vibrators, because you can't afford to have vibrators every day, new vibrators brought into the site. Right? Once a vibrator is brought into the site, you have to make sure till the whole job is over, the vibrator is well looked after and it's in good operating conditions. Right? So how to look after those vibrators, you can discuss and explain this. Okay. Then lesson number 9, construction joints, curing and finishing. Right? In this lesson, following 3 items will be studied, right? Construction joints. Then the second one is curing and concrete. Then the third one is finishing, right? When you say construction joints, right? If you are doing a large slab or something like that, sometimes you might not be able to complete the whole job in one day, right? Because it's a large concrete, and maybe the number of people you have employed is not sufficient enough to complete the job in one day. Then you might have to do the concreting next day, right? Continue the balance concreting next day. Then you will have to stop the work for the day, and by the next day when you start the work, right, it will be a fresh concrete. By that time, the earlier part has got hard to a certain level, right? So then there will be a construction joint. This joint is going to be definitely weak, because uh, this joint has not been put in the same day, right? There will be a weak place. So you have to have a construction joint. So when you are to, when as much as possible, you should avoid these construction joints. But due to some reason, if you have to have a construction joint, you should know where the concrete is leastly stressed, right, according to the design. And where the concrete is leastly stressed, at that places, the construction joints are being introduced. In this lesson, and those possible construction joint places are being discussed. What are the, according to, depending on the design of the concrete, depending on the span and the depth and all that, right? Where you can afford to have a construction joint. So as a construction engineer, you should be able to, you should have that idea, knowledge to identify, this is the place where I have to stop the work today. And from here, I can start tomorrow, so, right? So we discuss those construction joints in this lesson. Then the other thing is curing of concrete. once the concrete is being done, you have to look after the concrete because if you just neglect the concrete, if you don't cure the concrete, concrete is going to be weak. Let's say if you do a slab today, right? By tomorrow morning, the water is being dried up because initially there's a reaction called hydration within the concrete, right? Through hydration only, concrete achieves the strength. So if the hydration doesn't take place properly, concrete doesn't achieve the required strength. For hydration purpose to, take part, you have to have a certain amount of water within the concrete as well as on top of the concrete. So if you neglect this water, right, initial hydration will take place and it will consume all the water within the concrete. And it will not have enough sufficient water to complete the hydration process, which will end up with a weaker concrete. So that is why you have to have this watery environment in a concrete. It's very important the first 7 days, right? So that's why we have seen in construction sites when you put a slab or something, the very next day morning itself you start to sprinkle water onto the concrete slab. Because otherwise, when the next day, if when the sun comes up, right? If it's a hot day, within couple of minutes, within few hours, the surface gets dried up, fully dried up. Then what happens? For hydration purposes, there's no water within the concrete, and the surface becomes even weaker because with the heat up of the sun, right? There can have cracks, small cracks appearing on the top of the concrete. With those cracks, then the water inside also gets evaporated. Then the concrete can be very, very weak. So you have to have good watering or good system to have the concrete wet for at least 7 days, right? So some people they use sprinkler. Then you can do it with wet gunny bags. You have gunny bags over the concrete, then you make it wet all the time, right? Then you can pond it. You can have water, a little bit of water ponding on the concrete, right? So there are different types of curing systems that are available, right? You can have admixtures. There are different ways of curing the concrete, right? This lesson discusses of those different types of concrete curing methodologies. And if you don't cure, what happens to the concrete, right? The adverse effects of non-curing, the adverse effects that can have on the concrete. Then about the finishing. You do a structure and you want to have some aesthetic looks. So the finishing has to be good. If the finishing is bad, the structure doesn't look nice, right? So this lesson also discusses about the finishing of concrete, right? How the concrete has to be finished with a good aesthetic look. Then construction joints we discussed. How to identify construction joints. Then preparation of construction. Then sometimes if the structure is water retaining structure, you have to put water bars for water to prevent leaking. If you are doing a construction joint in a water retaining structure, like a big we'll say surface water tanker or a swimming pool, right? If you have to put a construction joint, then definitely the construction joint is a weak place. There water will, with time, water will start to leak out. So such places you have to put water bars, right? So you are being introduced to water bars. Someone is unmuted, and can you please unmute? Right. I can hear a discussion going on. Can you unmute that?
சும்மா சொன்ன பையன் கரும்பு சாப்பிடுறாண்டு
Father, can you unmute yourself?
எங்க கிரிய நம்பர்லயே
Ampotharan, can you unmute yourself? Right. So sometimes what we retain in structures, these water bars have to be used. What these water bars are, how they are being engaged in the concrete. So those things will be discussed. Then curing of concrete, right? What is the purpose of curing? Then what are the methodologies that are available for curing, right? Then finishing, filling and cleaning. How filling is being done. If the concrete is being badly done, you will have to have a proper finishing, right? If by any mistake, if by any chance segregation has been happened, and there will be honeycombed in the concrete, right? Once the formwork is being taken out, if segregation or bleeding has taken part, so you can see honeycombing in the concrete. So how honeycombing can be treated? Then concrete patching. Then how concrete can be patching, right? Okay, there was some disturbance. I unmuted. I muted them. So these things are discussed about finishing and curing of concrete. Lesson number 9, right? Do you have anything to ask at this moment? Okay. The last lesson.
Sir,
Yeah, sure.
sir, in my construction site,
Yeah.
we place slab concrete, sir. Slab concrete, but it's fine. It's look nice, but no crack and nothing. But in rainy time, the water will leak, sir. Leak mean lightly leak. Maybe what is the reason for that? Or what will be the mistake?
There can be several reasons, right?
The water leakage.
Yeah. The reasons, I mean, I don't know exact what the reason is. There can be several reasons. There can be a weak spot. One spot where segregation has taken place without being seen, right? All things may be nicely done. One weak spot can add to this. That is one thing. And the other thing is, if you have conduits introduced, are there conduit pipes inside the concrete? Sometimes
Yes, sir.
the common thing is conduit pipes, water travels from place to place, right? And through the conduit joints, they go out. And if there happens to be a weaker place near those joints, water can come out, right? It's a very common thing in this conduit problem is a very common thing, right? So actually, if the concrete, I mean, if there are weak places, that is the thing. Once it's been done, it's very hard to find where the leaks are taking place, right? So that's why I always insist as a site engineer, you have to make sure you have to stick to the correct procedures. You should not neglect any little thing when you are concreting. That is the most important thing, right? Okay, we'll go to the last lesson. Properties of hardened concrete. Now we were talking about properties of fresh concrete before the concrete is being hard. Now that lesson number 10 is discusses about the properties of hardened concrete. That is, once the concrete is hard, right? Normally concrete first 7 days hardens at a very high speed, right? Then till about 4 weeks, then the process is slow. But anyway, by the end of 1 month or 4 weeks, generally about 75% of the strength is being achieved, right? In a concrete, 70 to 75%. After that, only with time, it will have further, increase on the strength. So to get the full strength, sometimes it takes about 7, 8 months or even 1 year. Achieve about 95% of the full strength. So concrete, but 70%, more than 70% is achieved within the first 4 weeks. And first week, from that also very high percentage is being gained during the first 7 days. So this first 1 month curing is very important. Even the concrete in the wet environment. You must be hearing a lot of noises, like I don't know whether there's a parallel going on in front of the university. I'm operating from the Colombo ERC lecture room, right? Anyway, don't get disturbed by that. There's no way of. I can't help you. Properties of hardened concrete, right? The aim of this lesson is to learn about the properties of hardened concrete. Right? In hardened concrete, the main important things are the strength, right? If you don't have the proper expected strength of that concrete once it's hardened, then actually you have failed. You have miserably failed because you are expecting a certain strength of that concrete and it has not happened. That means that you have not done a proper job. So when you say to talk about the strength, there are two types of strengths. One is the compressive strength, right? The concrete should have the expected design compressive strength. The other one is the tensile strength. Concrete, to a certain extent, it can have a tensile strength because of the reinforcements, right? In your concrete design, you would have, if you have done it, have that knowledge by now, and if you are not done it, you will learn, right? Concrete will have the compressive and the tensile strength. Tensile strength is mainly given with the help of the reinforcements. That's why we have reinforcements in the concrete, right? To achieve the tensile strength. Compressive strength, of course, you don't need the reinforcement strength. Concrete can have the compressive strength. Concrete itself without reinforcement. So what are the factors that influence the strength, right? The main factors that influence the strength is cement itself. You have to have a good quality cement. Then the water, the correct amount of water and correct amount of water being used for curing as well once the concrete is being laid. Then the quality of the aggregates. If the aggregates quality is poor, if we have used poor sand or if we have used poor metal, right, weathered metal, then of course again the strength is going to get affected. In the final concrete, the strength will be affected. So you have to have good quality metal, right? Then steel, good reinforcements, because if the reinforcements are corroded, it will progress and it might even break. Or if the reinforcements are not of the proper tensile strength, then of course again low quality reinforcements will give a poor quality concrete, right? From tensile strength point of view. Then if you are using admixtures to gain further strength, right? Proper admixtures have to be used, right? If you use wrong admixtures or low quality admixtures, your expected strength is not going to happen. Then the method of preparation, the mixing has to be properly done. Then transporting has to be properly done. Then dropping the concrete into formwork has to be properly done. Because if you don't do it properly, segregation can take place, weak spots can take place. As you asked, those weak spots will have leaks at the end of the day, where you won't be able to find locate how those leaks are taking place. So it's can be endless problems, right? Then methods of preparation, how you batch. The batching has to be correct, right? Batching means, as I told you, proportioning of the aggregates. It has to be right proportions, right? You can't afford to make mistakes in making the proportions correctly. Then influence of curing, that is after laying the concrete, how you look after the concrete during the first 1 month. It's very important. If you don't cure and you just neglect, right? The season becomes very hot and dry. Concrete will deteriorate. Or if it rains, too much of water, or if it snows, Sri Lanka, of course, we don't have snow, right? Then it end up with a poor concrete, right? So these are very important things. Then another factor is like the strength, the durability, which I told earlier. The concrete has to last for a long number of years, right? Now, the building will be designed for 50 years or 75 years, whatever. So, to building to be survive for 75 years or 50 years, the durability of the concrete has to be proper. If the concrete fails before the 50 years, right? If the building is designed for 50 years, and if the concrete fails in 40 years, then of course the purpose is lost, right? The full duration has not been achieved. So durability is a very important thing. Then weathering. Now weathering is, I mean, due to the nature, right? Once the structure, concrete structure is being done, whether it's a building or a bridge or whatever, whatever, the weather changes, right? There will be very hot days, there will be very wet days, rainy days, right? The dry days, right? Very humid days. Whatever the weather, right? Concrete has to last. It has to survive. So from weathering, it has to survive. From heavy rains to very hot days. Then there can be chemical attacks, right? Sometimes there can be chemical attacks, especially it rains. Sometimes a lot of chemicals come onto the ground. So those that environmental conditions, right? A lot of bad fuels are being added to the environment daily through refineries and various fuels go into the atmosphere. And there are a lot of chemicals in the atmosphere. So with the rains, those chemicals will come and dump onto the concrete. So there can be chemical attacks to such things, so direct chemical attacks, right? Then there can be due to seawater attacks. Again, that is also sodium chloride. That is also due to chemical attacks. Sodium chloride means seawater attacks, right? So a concrete should be able to last those attacks depending on what the purpose of the structure is, right? Now, you don't have to worry much about domestic houses, small two-story houses. But if it's the foundation of a bridge, in a lagoon, let's say, where salty water is constantly in touch with the water, and if there's flowing water, right? And the river flows, right? Always there's a flowing water. Then the concrete has to last a long time. The quality of the concrete, the grade of the concrete has to be high, because otherwise, purpose it's not going to serve the purpose, right? If it decays in 10-20 years, for a bridge that is being expected to last 50 to 75 years, and if the bridge collapses, the bridge decays within 20 to 30 years, then the purpose is lost. So those things you have to be aware of, right? So then another thing is the shrinkage. Due to climatic temperature changes, concrete also shrink, right? There can be shrinkages, right? It expands with the heat, and shrinks with the lower temperatures. So the shrinkages can cause small cracks in the concrete. So if the quality is bad, these more cracks will occur. So once the cracks occur, water will seep into the concrete and it will affect the reinforcements inside the concrete. Once the reinforcements are affected, so it's going to lose the tensile strength, expected tensile strength. Where if tensile strength is being expected out of the concrete. Concrete gets weakened and the structure might give away. Then evaluation of the quality of concrete from non-destructive testing. There are certain amount of testing that you can evaluate the strength of the concrete and the condition of the concrete without breaking the concrete. Now, if you want to check the strength of the concrete of existing, it's again a bridge, right? You can't break the bridge and assess the quality of the existing condition. Without breaking, you should be able to, without disrupting the concrete, right? You should be able to have a fair access. You can't have 100% access about the concrete, but you should be able to have fair access about the concrete. So there are some non-destructive testing methodologies that are developed. So those tests are being discussed in this lesson. And those are the important things, right? Concreting. So I think on today's day school, we have completed about earth moving, about aggregates, then about concreting, right? So lesson 11 from 11 onwards, starting from homework to lesson 19, we will discuss in our next day school, right? So day school schedule is there in the open learn OSL website, right? I will put all the links like today's day school link, right? In the learn OSL. So you can log in through those links. And what I say is constantly be in touch with learn OSL because all the information will be given to you through that, because now the courses are mainly done online after this COVID pandemic. And now the COVID pandemic is less to override, but again there's another situation that has unfortunate situation that has developed, energy crisis and power cuts and so on. So, so the chances of meeting us is becoming lesser and lesser, right? Unfortunately, because that's the thing I don't like much. I like to be with the students, be doing classes in front of the students, right? And it's beyond our control. So try to, today, although 110 students have got given access, only 35 participants at the moment, so which is not good. Try to, the balance 3 day schools, right? Try to take part in the day schools, right? Ask the questions as we have been doing up to now. What else? The lab class is very important, right? Information about the lab classes we will give you during the course of the time. Because you have to come to the university, you can't do it online. Okay, I think we have come to the end of the day school and end of the time as well. If you want to ask a couple of quick questions, I will be able to help you with if you have so. Are there any questions in the chat box? There seems to be no questions in the chat box. But anyway, now since you have all the material with you, block 1 and block 2, both books are with you. Anyway, if you have not got the hard copies, not to worry, because both books are being uploaded into the Learn OUSL. You can, books are available. Course material is available. All the supplementary material is also available with the correct YouTube links, and my today's presentation slides are also there already in the with the Learn OUSL. So now you have everything. You are fully armed. So I wish all of you will study well. And I think I will meet you before the cat 2 because there's another day school. And do your cat 2, cat 1 well. Because before the cat 1, that's my second day school, right? So I will be meeting you again. So study well. Today itself you start reading these books. It's a quite, thick book. Block 1 is, has about 270 pages, right? So you have a lot to study. And all the questions will be based on block 1, right? And block 2. So to study the contents in the course material, there's no reason to, do not to do well in the exams. Right? Only thing is your writing has to be good. Definitely something that I have experienced is, especially in the 3-hour paper, right? Some students can't write. Their writing is very poor. Right? You have to study and you should be able to, express what you have studied well in the question paper because you will be assessed purely based on the answers that you have given in the 3-hour paper. However much knowledge you may have, if you have not answered well, then it's unfortunate, right? So answering is very important with clear sentences, readable sentences, whatever you want to wish to state, the reader should be able to understand, right? So good communication skill is very important. Communication means especially a writing skill because everything will be measured with your writing skill. But you don't get the opportunity now in the final year project, of course, you get the opportunity of talking to the examination panels. But in other courses, you are completely assessed on writing. So if you can't write properly, then you don't get the marks. This, not only construction engineering and material, for all the courses, it's very important. So try to do a lot of past papers, answer, and write good English, understandable English, grammatically correct English, in a readable manner, and express the knowledge that you have gained. Those means. Okay. So I think now time is up at 12:45 anyway. It is coming to an end. Goodbye.